8 years ago, 10-year-old Tran discovered his cheat skill. He was casually levitating furniture like a mini-Esper when his mom busted into the room. But instead of calling him a prodigy, his mom totally freaked out. She screamed at him to drop the magic act immediately. After taking a deep breath, she sat him down. He dropped a heavy question asking if he wanted to survive and stay together. A terrified Tran nodded frantically. To avoid a tragic backstory, she made him swear an ironclad oath to seal away his magical abilities forever. Never show anyone, she pleaded. Confused by this massive nerf, Tran demanded to know why he had to hide. She brought up the legendary lore of nobles and knights, which our boy Tran knew by heart. In this world, anyone flexing magical hacks like him is branded a wizard regardless of their social class. But the hierarchy is brutal. Nobles are literal demigods, descendants of the divine Freyans who saved ancient humanity. Knights, however, are half-bloods mixed with mere mortals. This creates a massive toxic power gap even among elite magic users. The devastating truth: Tran inherited his totally overpowered but socially doomed abilities from his deadbeat knight father. Outside their peaceful starter, village corrupt nobles ruthlessly enslave knights like cheap cannon fodder. She begged him to keep his wizard status completely locked away in the closet. Flash forward 8 years, Tran is faithfully sticking to his low-key NPC lifestyle, absolutely refusing to trigger any wizard plotlines. Honestly, he refuses to even leave his mountain hermit zone for the main village. Down below, two newbie kids are role-playing a classic wizard versus monster battle when Grandpa Robus crashes their playdate. Starry-eyed, the kid asks how to unlock the wizard class. Robus bluntly crushes his dreams, saying magic isn't for normies. He hypes up wizards as the absolute apex predators of humanity ruling from an unreachable VIP server. It is strictly a pay-to-win bloodline gotcha. Since these kids lack noble DNA, their wizard dreams are officially dead. A nearby villager aggressively sweat drops, shocked that the old man just ruthlessly destroyed a child's innocence. Suddenly changing the subject, the villager drops a bomb about a wild monster spawning nearby. Robus nods, grimly confirming poor NPC Rob nearly got ganked by the beast last night. Rumor has it, it is a shadowy doom-leopard built like a literal 2-story house. But panic averted. The village chief is speedrunning to the city to hire an overpowered wizard to totally obliterate the threat. The mob characters instantly breathe a massive sigh of relief. Naturally, the kids get slapped with a strict ban from entering the high-level forest zone. After all, a level 1 villager fighting a raid boss is certain death only wizards carry. When asked if the entire server got the emergency notification, Robus confidently confirms. But wait, did Mountain Boy Tran get the memo? Cut to our hero shamelessly using a fluffy sheep as a living pillow. Staring at the sky, Tran dramatically groans about his ultra-boring, endlessly looping slice-of-life scenery. He aggressively sighs, joking that his dialogue stats will drop to 0 from pure isolation. Suddenly, Robus spawns on the hill, violently roasting Tran for napping in broad daylight. Tran hits him with the ultimate ignore skill, lazily demanding the old man stop blocking his sunlight. Offended by this legendary disrespect, Robus demands to know if Tran is still salty over past drama. Context check. Robus once tried to sneakily steal Tran's inherited sheep right after his mom passed. With zero hesitation, Tran brutally confirms that yes, he holds an eternal grudge over that scam. He makes it crystal clear he is not some naive protagonist willing to share his mother's loot. Furthermore, he violently shatters their fake bond, telling the geezer to spit out his quest dialogue and kick rocks. The old man nearly explodes with rage, but one icy glare from Tran's main character eyes silences him instantly. Swallowing his pride, Robus finally drops the lore about the terrifying new monster spawn. He hypes up the beast's massive kill count potential, but Tran literally could not care less. Robus is completely flabbergasted by Tran's unbothered attitude, considering he is sitting right in the danger zone. He shakes his head, marveling at Tran's insane, borderline suicidal levels of absolute fearlessness. After confirming a wizard is on the way, Robus awkwardly tells Tran to stay safe, claiming he actually cares. But Tran immediately calls out his bluff. The greedy geezer only cares about keeping those precious sheep alive. Robus practically blows a gasket, hearing this absolute disrespect, but Tran casually shoos him away. His villain monologue for the day is officially concluded. He even roasts the elder's horrible breath, sending the poor grandpa trudging away in pure defeat. Speaking of terrifying beasts, true monsters are creatures brimming with dark, supernatural mana. What mages are to ordinary mortals, beasts are to these demonic creatures. Our main character is practically vibrating with hype. He finally gets to witness a real mage. Then again, expectations are in the gutter. How elite could a magic caster be if they are answering distress calls from this absolute dirt-poor countryside? Still, his gamer curiosity demands to gauge their power level. Suddenly, the sharp, metallic stench of fresh blood hits his nose, pulling him into the dark woods. Following the gruesome trail, he discovers the brutally mangled leftovers of the grumpy elder who just warned him, shredded like absolute confetti. The sheer irony: Grandpa came all this way to preach safety, only to get instantly one-shot himself. Tran just stares with a deadpan, entirely unbothered expression. Sharp eyes scan the carnage. No normal forest critter did this. A genuine demonic beast is definitely on the prowl. Right on cue, the murderer stomps out from the shadows. The legendary beast completely matches its terrifying rumors. Dripping with sinister black energy, its hulking frame and nightmare fuel face roar into view. These catastrophic beings boast such overwhelming specs that ordinary humans are basically walking snacks. Back home, the elder son trembles, convinced their entire settlement is completely doomed. His father had confidently sworn the esteemed mage would easily solo the beast. He had promised the crying kid that magic casters are totally invincible. Apparently, spellcasters can literally delete monsters using just a single vocal command. Back to the boss fight. Tran stares down the colossal nightmare with zero sweat. He casually opens his mouth and utters one word, die. An invisible shockwave violently yeets the beast backward, yet the monstrosity simply brushes it off. Tran blinks in sheer disbelief. The instant kill failed. While his brain buffers for a plan B, the enraged mutant launches a lethal pounce. He barks another vocal spell, Halt, but the creature bulldozes through, missing his face by millimeters. Our overpowered protagonist is actually stunned. 2 direct verbal commands completely tanked by a wild animal. Before he can complain to the devs, the beast pivots for a furious counterattack. Tran backflips away, realizing it is time to drop the deadpan act. Embracing his inner countryside sniper, he dramatically whips out his trusty leather sling. Loading a simple pebble, he applies an absolute reinforcement buff. As the makeshift bullet violently launches, he stacks an agility command to break the sound barrier. Approaching the target at Mach speed, Tran utters the ultimate execution command. Penetrate. The sheer kinetic energy creates rippling sonic booms, brutally tunneling straight through the demon's thick flesh. Incredibly, this massive critical hit still doesn't drop the boss. The bloodied nightmare charges head-on. But joke's on the beast, the magic bullet acts like a lethal boomerang, homing right back toward its blind spot. With absolutely devastating momentum, the hardened rock violently hollows out the monster's skull from behind, ending its rampage instantly. The colossal tyrant crashes into the dirt, completely lifeless. Meanwhile, Tran just stands there wearing his signature bored expression. He casually kicks the massive corpse into a nearby ditch, deeply annoyed by how these pesky countryside NPCs keep ruining his peace. Morning arrives, bringing a chaotic mob of highly aggressive locals straight to his doorstep. They brutally hammer against his wooden door, screaming for the main character's head. Plot twist. They boldly accuse him of assassinating Grandpa Rabus. The mob leader viciously yanks Tran's collar, calling him an absolute sociopath. He spins a wild fairy tale about Tran beating up the elder as monster bait. Tran smoothly claps back with lethal logic. Of course, these cowardly hypocrites would frame him. They let a fragile senior citizen die alone because they were absolutely terrified. Using an outsider as a scapegoat is just the easiest cheat code to erase their pathetic, spineless guilt. Triggered by the cold, hard truth, the mobster throws a pathetic sucker punch. Tran evades it without even blinking. Swift counterattack, Tran delivers a brutal headbutt, instantly shattering the bully's nose into a messy fountain of blood. Honestly, Tran is mentally high-fiving himself for learning mana arts. It makes absolutely everything hilariously easy. Just burn some MP, and wishes become reality. Another raging NPC blindly charges with a wooden club. Tran just smirks and quietly whispers a dark command trip. The magic activates instantly. The clumsy fool faceplants hilariously before even landing a swing. The chaotic beatdown turns into a hilarious tutorial level. Tran effortlessly trolls the entire angry mob without breaking a sweat. His only strict rule for this brawl, keep their HP just barely above 0. Snatching a dropped weapon, Tran playfully smacks a villager's face. He literally uses the dazed guy as a human shield to absorb friendly fire from the remaining goons. In a flash, Tran totally demolishes the mob. The best part, his wizard identity remains completely hidden in the shadows. Standing over the groaning pile of villagers, Tran scoffs. He roasts them, saying they should have used all that wasted energy to properly plan Robin's funeral instead of picking useless fights. Dusting off his hands, Tran shoots a sharp glare at the trembling women nearby. He asks if they want to beat down too. Panicking, the ladies immediately throw their hands up and surrender. They nervously stutter that they want absolutely zero trouble, claiming they only came for a friendly neighborhood greeting. Tran just rolls his eyes. He honestly couldn't care less, seeing as these cowards completely lack the backbone to actually attack. With a heavy sigh, he orders the terrified women to drag the unconscious losers downhill. Stepping back into his cozy cabin, Tran knows this petty drama is far from over. Those greedy villagers will definitely use this brawl as an excuse to scam him during his next market run. Still, our guy remains completely unfazed. If they try ripping him off, he will just smack some sense into them until they offer fair prices. After handing out such an epic, humiliating beatdown, Tran confidently assumes his peaceful shepherd life is finally safe from annoying intruders. But the universe loves comic timing. A sudden knock interrupts his thoughts. Annoyed Tran aggressively rips the door open, ready to yell at the next fool. However, his jaw drops in total surprise. The mysterious guy standing on his porch looks absolutely nothing like a local villager. Tran cautiously demands his identity. The polite stranger explains he simply needed a small travel favor, while awkwardly noting that he seems to have interrupted a rather intense moment. Sweating slightly, Tran apologizes for his hostility, blaming it on some incredibly annoying trespassers. Internally, Tran is completely panicking. As an isolated loner, his social skills are practically zero, despite his late mother desperately trying to teach him proper etiquette. Desperately trying to salvage the awkward vibe, Tran awkwardly offers his home as a temporary inn, inviting the mysterious traveler inside to rest. Moments later, our socially awkward host goes totally overboard, whipping up an absolute mountain of delicious food for his guest. Over the massive meal, the two start chatting. Tran casually explains his total lack of social life, revealing he has been living on this isolated mountain since the day he was born. In reality, his entire existence has just been a quiet, peaceful life herding sheep. He points out how incredibly strange it is for a random outsider to visit such a boring, middle-of-nowhere country village. Surprisingly, the traveler warmly compliments him. He praises Tran for having such surprisingly elegant manners for a lonely mountain boy. A bittersweet smile crosses Tran's face. He credits his beloved mother for the etiquette, sadly revealing that a cruel illness claimed her life years ago. The mysterious guest makes a holy gesture, offering gentle comfort. He sincerely assures Tran that his wonderful mother must be smiling down from the heavens. With the heavy emotions cleared, the chat turns casual again. Leaning forward, Tran finally asks the golden question: what actually brings a stranger to this forgotten rural wasteland? The guest casually drops a massive bombshell. He reveals he was officially hired to exterminate a dangerous beast lurking nearby, proudly declaring himself to be a real certified wizard. Tran completely freezes in shock. The puzzle pieces instantly click together. This guy is the exact same magic user the annoying villagers had been discussing. The atmosphere suddenly shifts. The wizard locks eyes with Tran, stating he has a crucial question. Sweating internally, Tran invites him to speak his mind. The wizard narrows his gaze, explaining that his magical senses detect a terrifying beast nearby, yet nothing is visible. What makes it infinitely weirder is Tran's incredibly unbothered reaction. Despite knowing a deadly creature is prowling around, the young man remains suspiciously calm. He points out that an isolated shepherd is the absolute perfect midnight snack for a beast, yet Tran shows zero fear. Praising this unnatural bravery from a sheltered country boy, the mood turns dangerously heavy. With a chillingly calm tone, the magic user demands to know Tran's true identity. Then the ultimate bombshell drops. He asks if Tran is secretly a magic user himself. Instantly, our boy's mind explodes into full-blown crisis management mode. The scene shifts to a dark memory. A young Tran innocently asks his mother about the fatal consequences of exposing his magical secret to society. His mother's face grew incredibly grim. She used a chilling metaphor about corrupt, powerful aristocrats to explain their harsh reality. She explained a brutal truth. If elite nobles are the master shepherds, then their deadly knights are nothing but obedient guard dogs. These masters might shower their hounds with fake familial affection, but they will ruthlessly sacrifice them the exact second they lose their usefulness. With tears in her eyes, she refused to let him become a disposable tool. She aggressively warned him that his magical powers must remain a permanent secret, especially from fellow spellcasters. If his true nature leaked, those powerful elites would forcefully steal him away, breaking him into a loyal, magical attack dog only to toss him aside later. To protect his freedom and keep his dangerous identity buried, she chillingly confessed that he might eventually have to silence people forever. Snapping back to reality, dark intent fills Tran's eyes. Assassination seems completely necessary. Noticing the sudden, bone-chilling deadpan stare on his host's face, the wizard nervously swallows. He slowly asks why Tran has gone completely silent. Just before Tran unleashes a lethal magical strike, the guest bursts into nervous laughter. He desperately claims it was all a prank, complaining that Tran's scary face ruined the punchline. The murderous aura instantly vanishes, blinking in sheer confusion. Tran awkwardly rubs his neck and apologizes, admitting his comedic timing is basically non-existent. Wiping sweat, the traveler insists the fault is entirely his for causing such an unnecessary panic. A genuine smile finally returns to Tran's face. He gently laughs, admitting that hearing a prank from a legendary spellcaster completely short-circuited his brain for a second. Realizing their manners slipped, the mysterious guest extends a friendly hand. With a warm grin, he finally introduces himself as Kaorn, a wandering magic user. They seal the deal with a handshake, and Tran finally drops his own identity. Tran drops that he is turning 18 while Korn casually flexes, being 75. Tran is shocked. Since Korn looks insanely young, Korn smirks, revealing that magic users age at a crawl and live way longer. Curious, Tran asks why a powerful guy like him chose the wandering hobo life. Korn explains that after serving the Arabian bloodline for 60 long years, he just bounced. He craved the ultimate freedom, wandering the world without tying himself down. Time flies as they vibe in deep conversation. Tran is honestly mind-blown he can be this ridiculously chill with a total stranger. Checking the late hour, Korn finally declares that it is time for him to bounce. Slapping down a shiny Arabian silver, Korn brags, it is top-tier purity, easily covering their epic feast. Tran happily pockets the loot, wishing the old-timer crazy good luck on his hunt. Korn laughs, telling him not to get dramatic. He plans to totally mooch off him again later. Morning hits, and Tran cheerfully gathers his sheep, practically glowing. Makes sense. Chatting with a fellow magic user for the first time felt incredibly refreshing. Tran honestly thinks Korn is the funniest boomer he has ever crossed paths with. Last night, the old man totally delivered by bringing back some epic hunted grub. Tran realizes he is genuinely awesome. He used to think all knights were just emotionless lapdogs for snobby nobles, but Tran sweats nervously. How exactly does he tell Korn the hill is already completely wiped clean of monsters? Evening, Korn snoops around the woods. He spots heavy battle scars, but strangely, absolutely zero monster aura. Spotting a shattered stone lodged in a heavily sliced tree, he scratches his head. Did someone already completely obliterate the beast? He rubs his chin, intensely curious about the mystery badass who stole his prey. Did the village chief secretly double-book the quest with another magic user? Whatever it is, honestly a massive win. A dead monster means a safe zone, and that is what actually matters here. Suddenly a foul stench hits his nose. He whips around only to face the exact leopard beast, Tran supposedly wrecked. But things just got insane. The beast has completely mutated into a terrifying wraith. Korn completely loses his mind. Who the heck leaves a mess like this behind? Before his brain can even process it, the undead beast wildly lunges, forcing a desperate backwards dodge. Fun fact, ignoring the residual mana of a slain beast literally turns it into a totally unhinged wraith. This is basic magic, user 101. How could anyone screw this up? The corrupted beast aggressively charges again. Korn vaults skyward to dodge death immediately, realizing only a fellow magic user could have initially dropped this thing. So why on earth did they just let it casually respawn as a nightmare? Was the hunter an absolute noob impossible? No total rookie has the raw firepower to solo a ridiculously buffed leopard beast like the one actively trying to eat him. Dropping the massive mystery, Korn steals himself. Wraith or not, he just has to completely obliterate this thing. Korn instantly blasts a glowing magic arrow, but to his absolute horror, the attack just uselessly fizzles out. Korn's jaw completely drops. This absolute unit has way more raw mana than him. Suddenly, the beast practically teleports out of sight. Absolute panic grips him as he frantically searches for the incoming lethal strike. Boom! The nightmare materializes right behind him, unleashing a deadly roaring slash. Korn barely ducks, but blood still sprays. The terrifying reality hits him. This overpowered freak is way beyond a standard knight's pay grade. Judging by its insane speed, only a totally awakened magic elite could even stand a slight chance here. Cold sweat aggressively pours down his face. Finding a high-tier boss in this dumpster fire village is pure insanity. Staring death right in the face, Korn grimly accepts that it is totally game over. But if he goes down, he is absolutely dragging this stupid furball to hell with him. He frantically channels every drop of remaining aura into his fist, readying a suicidal point-blank magic strike. The beast viciously lunges, and Korn roars fearlessly, leaping right into the jaws of absolute death. But wait. A blinding magic laser suddenly erupts from afar, absolutely one-shotting the terrifying beast into oblivion. Trembling with sheer relief, Korn freezes as a super familiar casual voice behind him asks if he is still breathing. Korn whips completely around, jaw-dropping. Tran was a freaking magic user this whole time. Tran sheepishly nods, leaving Korn screaming about why he kept it a massive secret. Tran remained dead silent. Confused Kuran pushed further, demanding why the boy bothered saving his life, instead of just walking away. Breaking his silence, Tran's thoughts drifted back to the previous night. Kuran had just returned, hauling a massive beast he had fiercely hunted down. Tran had bluntly asked him why he played the selfless hero, especially when his skills could easily rake in a massive fortune. The heavy sigh, Kuran confessed that the frontier villagers were defenseless, left completely exposed without a shred of basic protection. Tran pointed out that wasn't his problem. But Kuran proudly declared his identity as a wizard, a vessel carrying divine power. Because of this heavenly gift, shielding the weak was his absolute duty. He chuckled, admitting most wizards were entirely selfish. Everyone simply chose to walk their own unique path in this cruel world. Snapping back to reality, Tran threw Kuran's exact words right back at him. Everyone truly had their own way of surviving. Out of nowhere, the beast lunged again. Thankfully, both of them dodged the lethal strike by a hair's breadth. Panic seized Kuran. He screamed that they were completely outmatched, as only high-ranking nobles stood a chance against such an abomination. Unfazed, Tran ordered Kuran to run. He needed to warn the village chief to evacuate immediately, while Tran held the absolute nightmare back. Sweating bullets, Kuran knew his own magic was useless here. Still, his pride refused to let him just abandon a comrade. But Tran casually shattered the tension, assuring Karan that if his previous strike had actually connected, the beast would be dead already. Karan's jaw dropped to the floor. Was this crazy kid seriously implying his last devastating blow was just a simple warm-up? Absolute disbelief washed over him. This mountain boy possessed an overwhelming strength that rivaled or even surpassed the legendary noble families. Karan watched in sheer terror as Tran began drawing an ambient mana, gearing up for an unbelievably catastrophic magical counterattack. A chilling realization hit Karan. He was witnessing the birth of a monstrous wizard, someone capable of completely flipping the entire world upside down. Meanwhile, Tran was practically buzzing with excitement. He finally had the perfect excuse to test the absolute limits of his bizarre strength. As immense magical energy surged around his body, Tran effortlessly gathered floating boulders, turning them into deadly artillery against the Wraith. Refusing to be utterly useless, Karan yelled that he wouldn't let him fight solo. No matter Tran's insane talent, this Wraith was a legendary nightmare. He desperately wanted a hero team up. But the second Tran unleashed his devastating first barrage, Karan hilariously tossed that idea out the window. He realized his weak magic would just be a totally annoying hindrance. His only real job now was acting as this terrifying genius's personal cheerleader. Tran's barrage unleashed a massive shockwave. Yet as the blinding dust finally cleared, the cursed Wraith remained untouched. Tran blinked in absolute confusion. Sweating profusely, Karan screamed that mere physical damage was utterly useless against spectral beings. Annoyed, Tran demanded to know how to actually execute the ghost. Karan frantically explained that only elemental magic like blazing fire or roaring lightning would actually work. Following the veteran's advice, Tran awkwardly tried to magically burn it, failing miserably. Face-palming hard, Karan yelled that his technique was entirely backward. Karan was losing his absolute mind. How did this insanely overpowered kid lack the most basic, magical common sense? To properly project a wizard's spell onto a living target, establishing a strict mental process was step 1 of Magic Academy. A hilarious but terrifying thought struck Karan. Tran was probably the clueless idiot who accidentally created this vengeful Wraith in the first place. Meanwhile, the completely furious Wraith shrieked out, unleashing pure destruction while aggressively hunting down Tran. Staring at the boy's bizarre movements, the impossible truth finally hit Karan. Tran had literally never absorbed pure mana in his entire life. Shouting loudly, Karan ordered him to stop blindly lighting fires. He needed to magically manifest it, then physically blast it. Trusting his frantic mentor, Tran focused brewing a fiery spark right in his palm. For normal wizards, making fire was simple, but stabilizing that volatile energy usually required years of incredibly grueling training. Karan's eyes nearly popped out of his skull. Tran casually conjured a perfectly stable fireball without breaking a single sweat. With a quick flick, Tran launched the inferno explosively, pouring even more magical energy upon physical impact. As the Wraith wailed in sheer agony, Karan screamed for him to keep pumping raw mana. The cursed entity had to be completely incinerated into absolute nothingness. Wearing a completely bored expression, Tran maintained the overwhelming heat. He mercilessly scorched the monstrous spirit until only a charred, pathetic skeleton remained. Karan stood completely paralyzed. They had casually annihilated a totally impossible enemy, his brain practically short-circuited. A terrifying Wraith that demanded an elite noble's intervention was just casually bullied to death by a random mountain shepherd. Breaking the absolute silence, Tran innocently asked if they were done. Still twitching, Karan ordered him to absorb the residual mana immediately unless he wanted a round 2. Tilting his head, Tran cluelessly asked how to do that. Karan sighed, explaining he needed to vividly imagine sucking the mystical energy deep into his core. Nodding slowly, Tran simply stretched out his bare hand, ready to blindly follow the bizarre instructions. Instantly, glowing blue mana drifted directly from the beast's corpse, violently rushing straight into his body. Smirking, Karan warned that the sudden magical influx would feel weirdly euphoric. Trembling slightly, Tran confessed he hadn't believed the crazy wizard at first. Dumbfounded, Karan hesitantly asked if this was truly his very first time absorbing pure mana. Smiling awkwardly, Tran agreed. Astonishingly, right after experiencing a first magical awakening, mana normally drips in slower than dial-up internet. Wanna level up fast? Just start farming monsters and rival mages for their juice. But here is the crazy part. This was literally Tran's tutorial drop, yet he is already flexing magic like a total raid boss. Kaorn's jaw drops. This kid's innate potential is completely off the charts. Panicking, Kaorn suddenly bows. He begs forgiveness, frantically asking which elite noble house birthed this absolute monster. Tran just blinks. Dude, maybe heal that bleeding arm first. Kaorn freezes, totally stunned by the casual reply. Back at Tran's shack, the bleeding stops. While patching up the knight's arm, Kaorn awkwardly apologizes for ruining his peaceful shepherd vibes. Tran sighs, repeating himself for the 100th time. Bro, I am no secret heir. I am just a literal sheep herder who doesn't even know his own dad. Kaorn is baffled. Then why is an overpowered freak like you herding fluffy clouds? Coughing awkwardly, Kaorn clarifies. No offense to the sheep, but this basic NPC lifestyle absolutely does not fit your main character energy. Tran shrugs. Mom's orders. She said nobles treat mages like disposable batteries, using them up and tossing them out. Kaorn nods solemnly. Your mother was a remarkably wise woman. Tran blinks, fully expecting the knight to call his mom a paranoid helicopter parent. Instead, Kaorn doubles down on her wisdom. Insane magical power just makes you a magnet for endless bloody drama. He drops some tragic backstory lore. Years ago, a massive guild war erupted between his Arabian faction and the rival House of Zahar. The death toll was absolutely brutal. Out of 3,000 elite Arabian knights, over 900 were wiped completely off the server. Tragically, Kaorn's entire party got wiped. The casualties weren't just random NPCs, they included his beloved wife and his own son. He was the sole survivor of that nightmare. So yeah, your mom's survival strategy was totally valid. A knight's life can get deleted faster and more pointlessly than a random background peasant. She miscalculated one massive detail. Your broken cheat tier aptitude. Tran tilts his head. Kaorn sighs. I am a trained mid-tier knight, yet you easily soloed a boss monster that almost killed me. Your specs aren't just mere knight material. You have the raw stats of a high noble. Honestly, you are upper S rank. Tran rubs his neck. Mom claimed dad was a knight, but I always figured that was massive copium. Kaorn chuckles. Genetics are weird. Some pureblood nobles birth absolute trash-tier kids. Meanwhile, random knights can spawn literal prodigies. Seriously, kid, you need to log out of this hill. Why? Tran asks. Because humanity is desperately low on heavy hitters. Newsflash. Humans aren't the apex predators here. Ancient non-human races are plotting a massive comeback, and instead of grouping up our idiot nobles, just keep PvPing each other to death. That is exactly why this crumbling world needs an overpowered decent guy like you. Reaching the door, Kaorn smirks. Are you really okay? Just trimming sheep forever? Tran pauses, rubbing his chin. What is the loot drop for climbing down this mountain? Kaorn laughs. Depends entirely on what quest you pick. Fame, fortune, or a found family. It is tough, but the skill tree is completely open. Stepping into the breeze, Kaorn suggests he could become a wandering rogue like himself, farm menacing monsters for the people, or explore the chaotic unknown borders. Heck, get adopted by a rich guild and speedrun the path of absolute power. Stepping outside, Tran grins. You make a solid point. Stomping the real world sounds way cooler than playing Sheep Simulator. For the very first time, the shepherd actually wants to touch grass elsewhere. Kaorn smiles warmly. I might be projecting my own hype onto you, but I will buff you with every single resource I have. Suddenly, Kaorn asks to see his inherited bloodline ability. Tran just stares completely error, 404. Kaorn facepalms. My bad, I totally forgot you skipped the basic magic tutorial. A bloodline ability is a passive cheat skill inherited from those ancient Freyan ancestors. Having that special gene literally separates the try-hard knights from the true elites. Think hard. Did any spell feel incredibly busted and easy, or do you have some weird superhuman talent that requires 0 mana? Tran scratches his head. Well, I smell things like a dog, and I yeet rocks pretty good. A super nose definitely counts as a bloodline trait, and wait, throwing weapons is actually a signature Arabian house combat style. It is a common combat class trait, but do not stop there. Tell me more of your stats. After flexing his entire skill tree, Tran realizes Korn looks like he just bit into a sour lemon. When pushed for answers, Korn drops a bombshell. He finally cracked the genetic code of Tran's mysterious family lineage. With ice in his voice, Korn names the legendary House Zahar, the exact same family that waged an all-out war against House Arabian. Cue the awkward silence. Tran instantly realizes why the old man's vibe completely soured. Talk about horrible luck. Our main character is basically wearing the jersey of Korn's most hated rival. What do you even say to that? Apologizing feels weird. After all, those warmongering ancestors are total strangers to him. Why should he take the blame for ghosts? Seeing Tran's sweat buckets, Korn sighs and gives him a reassuring pat on the shoulder. He tells the kid to chill out. It's not like Tran was secretly commanding troops on the battlefield. Tran stammers awkwardly, but the veteran interrupts. He chuckles, brushing it off as complicated grown-up drama. Holding grudges is exhausting anyway. Washing blood with blood just leaves everyone permanently in need of a laundry day. Still skeptical, Tran asks if sending a potential enemy down the mountain is really a smart move. Korn admits the harsh truth. Seeking ultimate power down below practically guarantees Tran will get drafted by the Zahar clan, but he trusts the boy's goofy heart. Tran blinks in utter confusion, prompting Korn to praise his heroic monster-punching rescue from earlier. Plus, the kid literally just dumped his top-secret, lifelong hidden identity on a total stranger. Korn bets that if a giant softy like Tran takes over House Zahar, he might actually stop the next apocalyptic turf war. Dropping that heavy lore, Korn turns to walk away. He advises him to stop overcooking his brain. After all, Tran hasn't even signed the official adoption papers for the Zahar family yet. Hold up, Tran calls out, his eyes shining with newfound resolve. He has officially decided to descend the mountain. The veteran smirks, proudly validating the boy's epic boss-level decision. Plot twist. He refuses to leave until Korn's injuries are fully healed. Totally caught off guard, the old man softly chuckles at his ridiculous kindness. Fast forward to lecture time, Professor Korn sits him down for Magic 101, revealing that casting spells requires cold, hard mana. People call it the literal key to godhood, but honestly, that is just heavily exaggerated fantasy marketing. To fire off cool spells, your internal battery needs the exact right flavor of magical energy. Tran scratches his head, asking for the cheat sheet. Korn holds up 3 fingers, breaking down the ultimate modifiers for spellcasting. Rule number 1 is Bloodline. Rule 2 is natural affinity, and Rule 3 is mystical causality. Your bloodline is pure luck from birth. This overpowered trait carries almost every snooty noble who refuses to swing a sword. For instance, a brawler like Tran, trying to magically patch up open flesh wounds. Utter disaster waiting to happen. Why? Because he didn't roll the legendary Wraith genetics. Those guys can practically perform surgeries while sleepwalking. Moving to Rule 2 affinity, it is basically just your muscle memory for slinging specific elemental powers. If a mage loves explosions, bombarding things gets way easier, like how Korn casually pitches blazing fireballs as if playing an aggressive game of dodgeball. Tran nods along. If he tried manifesting fire out of nowhere, it would probably look like a sad, sputtering matchstick. Then comes causality. The final boss of magic theory, honestly. Even Korn admits it melts his brain a little. If I purely wished for your death using raw mana, what happens? Korn quizzes. Tran deadpans that Korn's head would just glow like a useless light bulb. Bingo. The veteran snaps his fingers. That embarrassing dud of a spell is exactly what happens when causality is missing. To demonstrate, he hovers his glowing hand over a teacup, making the water inside aggressively boil and hiss. He explains the glitch in the system. Demanding ridiculous results without setting up a logical cause just wastes massive amounts of energy for nothing. The gears turn in Tran's head. Oh, I totally get it now, he grins casually, using Korn's assassination as an example. Instead of magically wishing for him to drop dead, it is way cheaper to just conjure a blazing inferno and roast him alive. To prove his point, Tran instantly ignites the poor teacup in a blinding flash of fire. He smugly declares that throwing a massive fireball at a guy's face is just way more scientifically practical than casting an instant death spell. Mind blown by his rapid learning, Korn claps his hands. He jokes that Tran should ditch the battlefield and become a tenured academy professor. Shrugging off the praise, Tran flexes that his beast-taming skills are basically a cheat code anyway. But do magical monsters even care about causality? Korn blames their mutated mana pools, immediately dragging them into a mind-numbingly boring hours-long nerd debate. Finally ending the torture, Korn casually drops one last juicy spoiler. The Zahar family possesses their own completely broken signature magic. They are the ultimate stealth assassins and elite trackers. Hyped by the thought of ninja skills, Tran eagerly agrees to test it out. Tran focuses his mana, wishing to vanish completely. To Kjorn's absolute shock, the kid actually pulls it off. Reappearing from thin air, Tran leaves the veteran warrior sweating. Kjorn admits that this terrifying stealth technique gives him serious chills. During the Great War, this exact terrifying skill was the ultimate nightmare of the legendary Arabian Nights, but the veteran issues a stern warning. No matter how overpowered this stealth seems, it isn't totally invincible. When Kjorn offers to drop even more magical knowledge, Tran squints suspiciously. Why share such top-tier secrets with a mage from a rival family? The old warrior just smiles. Tran saved his life, and more importantly, Kjorn completely trusts the kid's golden character. Back in town, Tran drops a massive bombshell. He is selling the entire flock of sheep and immediately skipping town. With his bags already packed, the village chief utterly loses his mind. How could this brat make such a crazy move without asking permission? Tran savagely shrugs him off. Finding a new shepherd is their problem now, and frankly, his personal property is nobody else's business. But he demands they buy the flock for a perfectly fair price. If they refuse to pay up, he will happily set every single fluffy animal free and walk away. The villagers are welcome to try chasing down the runaway livestock, but Tran smugly guarantees it will be an absolute nightmare for them. Gritting his teeth, the chief realizes he is completely trapped. Tran never bluffs, and poking the sleeping bear would only end in disaster. Utterly defeated, the chief coughs up the coins, bitterly telling the crazy kid to just get lost. Hitting the road, our duo sets off. Suddenly, Tran realizes those cheapskate villagers still owe his mentor a massive subjugation fee, but Kjorn waves it off with a chuckle. He refuses to collect a single copper since our main character was the one who actually slaughtered the beast. Reaching a dusty crossroads, the atmosphere suddenly shifts. The grizzled veteran turns to Tran, announcing that this is where their paths finally diverge. Yorn apologizes for rejecting the party, preferring the lone wolf lifestyle. Tran casually smiles, expressing deep gratitude for all the priceless teachings. Exchanging a final manly farewell, our hero genuinely hopes their next epic reunion will be filled with bright smiles and good drinks. Watching the old warrior fade into the horizon, a heavy realization hits Tran. That man was the father figure his soul had secretly craved. Marching into the scorching desert wasteland, Tran spots a highly suspicious group of shady dudes looming in the distance. Assuming they are just ordinary traveling merchants, our clueless protagonist casually strolls right up to them to ask for some basic directions. The tense squad braces for a fight, but Tran quickly raises his hand, swearing he is just a harmless solo traveler. He politely asks for the quickest route to the closest major city. Incredibly shady guy, rocking an eye patch, points backward. He smugly claims that following their dusty trail will lead straight to the bustling city of Marai. Stepping aside, Tran cheerfully thanks them and turns to leave. But the eye patch dude blocks his path, flashing a wicked grin. Information in the wasteland isn't free, buddy. In an instant, the hostile squad forms a tight circle around him. The shiny glint of lethal steel instantly catches his eye. The terrifying truth drops like an anvil. These are ruthless bandits. Eye Patch chuckles darkly, noting that finding a random corpse out in this lawless wasteland is perfectly normal. He mockingly orders Tran to strip off his valuables immediately. Why force them to murder him and ruin their perfectly good afternoon? Instead of crying, Tran drops a total bombshell. Since they are murderous trash, they make the absolute perfect live combat dummies. The sheer demonic grin spreading across his face sends pure icy terror straight down their spines. Thinking he is just an arrogant kid, bluffing the thugs charge forward, but with a single flick of his wrist, an explosive gale force violently blasts them away. Even Tran is completely stunned. He just summoned a literal hurricane while barely spending a single drop of his precious mana. While the battered thugs groan in total confusion, our overpowered protagonist casually uncorks his simple water gourd. Fluidly drawing out the liquid, he sculpts it into deadly aquatic arrows, ruthlessly impaling a screaming bandit on the spot. Still, Tran clicks his tongue in disappointment, realizing plain old rocks hit way harder. Meanwhile, the terrified bandit boss finally accepts their impending doom and starts crying for mercy. He pathetically vows to surrender absolutely all of their shiny loot. But his crying is a dirty trap. His sneaky lackeys attempt a cowardly ambush from behind. Right before the lethal strike lands, Tran violently stomps the earth. Brutal spikes of hardened sand erupt upward, viciously skewering the ambushers and utterly breaking the boss's spirit. Towering over the shaking survivor, Tran demands answers. The utterly broken thug frantically swears to sing like a canary. Why on earth did they blindly attack without scouting his power level? As they just painfully learned, he could have easily been a high-ranking battle mage. Shivering in fear, the leader confesses. Tran kept bowing submissively even when they were tossing nasty insults. Plus, the kid had bowed deeply during his polite greeting. To Wasteland scum, that excessive politeness screamed totally defenseless civilian. Tran calmly thanks the bleeding thug. This brutal Wasteland encounter just taught our hero an incredibly priceless lesson. The begging bandit leader looked up only to freeze as the absolute face of impending doom stared right back at him. Master Korn's golden rule echoed loudly. Never show a single ounce of mercy to bandit scum because those rats wouldn't hesitate to stab you. Tran knew the harsh reality. Sparing one pathetic bandit out of misplaced pity could easily sign the death warrants of 10 innocent people tomorrow. With the trash disposed of, Tran confidently marched right down the exact path those goons had crawled from. As the adrenaline faded, a heavy realization suddenly crashed down. Holy crap, he actually just killed people. A tiny wave of guilt hit, but he shook it off. Master Korn's strict survival warnings left absolutely zero room for any hesitation. After endlessly trekking across the brutal wasteland while looping his master's teachings, Tran finally stumbled into an entirely brand new world. Gazing down from the ridge, the bustling city of Marai unfolded before him. The very second he stepped inside, his country boy mind was completely blown away by the overwhelming chaotic sea of humans everywhere. His jaw hit the floor. The towering architecture looked like it belonged to a totally different universe. He finally felt the overwhelming chaotic energy of standing in a true living metropolis. Tran confidently strutted up to a fruit vendor with a polite greeting. The merchant's eyes lit up, expecting a sale, only for Tran to blatantly declare he was not a customer. Master Korn's survival guide rule rang in his head. The absolute first priority in any new city is securing an inn, so Tran innocently asked for directions. But the grumpy vendor instantly rolled his eyes and completely shooed him away, like a stray dog for not opening his wallet. Tran tilted his head in pure confusion. Was there some secret city law dictating you absolutely had to buy a fruit just to unlock a basic conversation? Playing along, Tran dramatically pointed at a shiny apple and casually demanded the price. 2 dupit, the grumpy vendor grunted. But when Tran pulled out 2 completely foreign coins, his massive country bumpkin aura was instantly exposed. Money is money, though. The greedy merchant quickly snatched the strange currency, shameless admitting foreign coins worked. Right as the coin dropped, Tran hit him with the in question again. Singing a different tune, the vendor happily directed him straight past the cape shop and to the left. Just look for the massive building with the flashy blue roof, he yelled. It was the absolute grandest inn around. Trusting the grumpy fruit guy's navigation, Tran safely arrived at the tavern and was instantly greeted by Lena. 16 ducat for one night. Tran handed over the cash without sweating but leaned in close, completely ready to drop his ultra-important, highly mysterious question on the totally unsuspecting lady. With a serious face, he eagerly asked if there were any high-bounty monsters lurking around nearby. Lena blinked in sheer confusion. She had absolutely no clue our boy desperately needed to slaughter beasts just to suck up all their juicy mana. Plus, Korn explicitly promised monster hunting was an absolute goldmine, but Lena just stared blankly, leaving Tran awkwardly wondering why she was completely frozen. Lena flashed a sly smile, declaring that absolutely nothing in this world comes for free. After tipping her to loosen her lips, she pointed him toward the city hall. Naturally, our clueless village boy had absolutely zero idea what that meant. Sighing dramatically, Lena explained it was the central hub for public quests, totally run by fancy officials working directly under the powerful local city lord. But she quickly shattered his dreams, noting it was already way past closing time. If he wanted to score some epic monster bounties, he would definitely have to drag himself there bright and early tomorrow. Lena curiously asked if he was a monster hunter, but Tran had absolutely no clue what that even meant. He dramatically explained a wild local legend. If an ordinary person slaughters monsters, they can magically transform into a literal wizard. Naturally, she assumed Tran was desperately grinding experience points to become a wizard. Suddenly, a rugged-looking veteran hunter named Madan popped up behind Tran like a ninja. He proudly declared the legend was absolutely true, swearing on his life that he witnessed it himself. Lena rolled her eyes at the familiar face, brutally roasting the guy by acting completely shocked that his reckless self was somehow still alive. Madan loudly boasted that he absolutely refused to die until he finally secured his shiny new wizard title. Tran's eyes instantly sparkled with intense curiosity. He eagerly grabbed onto Madan's words, begging the veteran for some juicy insider lore. Madan proudly dropped the system mechanics since wizards level up by absorbing monster energy. An ordinary dude doing the exact same thing can eventually mutate into a powerful magic user too. Madan proudly revealed his entire party was currently hunting monsters just to become magical wizards. Tran practically bounced, asking if any of them had unlocked magic yet. Madan coughed, admitting they hadn't. The whole city only possessed the Lord's supreme wizard and 3 measly apprentices. Looking Tran up and down, Madan brutally judged his pathetic starter gear, roasting our boy for claiming to be a hunter without possessing a single actual weapon. But Tran just smirked with pure confidence, proudly whipping out his trusty old rock sling. Surprisingly, Madan was totally impressed by the dangerously worn-out leather. Tran casually nodded, flexing that his trusty gear was the absolute best tool for firing egg-sized rocks at completely terrifying speeds. Nodding wisely, Madan confidently declared that Tran's little toy was decent enough for farming weak fox or rabbit monsters. Flashing a charismatic smile, Madan smoothly explained they desperately needed a ranged sniper and eagerly asked if Tran wanted to join their hunting party. Staying true to the lone wolf grind, Tran humbly rejected the party, invite politely thanking the veteran. Collapsing onto his bed that night, Tran sighed heavily, completely exhausted by the absolute roller coaster of a day. Staring into the unknown, he couldn't believe he actually ditched his rural village. What wild adventures awaited him now? While casually juggling pure magic, his sharp instincts flared. An intruder. He leaped out of bed, fiercely demanding the mystery guest reveal themselves. His master Kioran had drilled this into his skull. Absolute vigilance at all times, even in a supposedly peaceful tavern. City walls don't guarantee safety. Channeling his aura, Tran braced for a lethal ambush and bravely swung the wooden door wide open. Plot twist. It was just Lena blurting out entirely ridiculous questions, asking if he was already fast asleep. Flashing a coy smile, she offered to be his personal heater, claiming his lonely room felt far too chilly. Utterly baffled, our oblivious hero asked for clarification. Lena boldly gestured to her chest, making her spicy intentions crystal clear. The innocent boy still didn't compute. Dropping the act, she bluntly offered to fulfill any deep desire for a handful of coins. Tilting his head, he genuinely asked, "What if I don't want absolutely anything?" Grabbing his shoulders aggressively, she demanded he stop playing hard to get insisting. His blushing face revealed his true thoughts. Instantly, Tran's eyes turned frosty. Master Kioran's dire warning echoed, "Avoid tavern maids like the plague, literally, because they carry gross diseases." Sure, mighty wizards resist sickness, but the real tragedy, he might accidentally pass those nasty germs to his future true love. Kioran's voice echoed, "Never let cheap thrills drag you into a lifetime of absolute regret." He firmly rejected Lena, sending her stomping away furiously. The brutal reality of city life finally struck him. Between dodgy fruit merchants and sketchy maids, it was exhausting. Flopping back onto his bed, he sighed, charging money for every tiny interaction. This modern city was a truly heartless wasteland. Downstairs, a clueless lackey questioned why Boss Madan tried to recruit that random country bumpkin. The kid looked completely pathetic. Another goon scoffed, claiming the brat just had an arrogant attitude. He'd only be useful as Goblin Chow, but Madan chuckled, confessing the fierce rookie perfectly mirrored his own reckless youth. The veteran leader was actually sweating over the pathetic, rusty gear Tran wielded. Madan simply wanted to shield the rookie from an early grave. The rowdy crew was completely moved by their boss's surprisingly golden heart. But plot twist, thanks to enhanced senses, Tran eavesdropped on everything. A soft smirk broke across his face. Perhaps this concrete jungle wasn't completely devoid of warmth and brotherhood after all. Dawn broke. Tran marched straight into the guild, confronting a supremely arrogant clerk, and boldly demanded a monster hunting quest. The bureaucrat's silent, condescending glare instantly triggered another flashback. His master was right. Society doesn't hand out free kindness. When young Tran had questioned this cruel reality, Kyoran dropped a harsh truth. The world owes you absolutely nothing. The ultimate cheat code for respect. Flash your wizard credentials. Unleashing that noble magical identity forces commoners to practically grovel at your feet in sheer awe. Sneering, the rude clerk slammed a dusty monster manual onto the desk, ordering the rookie to study the deadly target. The target, a terrifying demonic crow. The official mockingly challenged him to drag its rotting corpse back, assuming he even survived. He warned that unabsorbed monster cores spawned deadly wraiths. Little did he know, our overpowered protagonist had memorized that rule ages ago, the penalty for leaving dangerous mana behind. A swift, brutal execution under strict city laws, and innocently questioned why lazy knights weren't doing this dirty work. The clerk scoffed, claiming the royal guard was way too busy. Elite knights sip tea protecting the capital, while suicidal fieldwork is dumped on expendable peasants like our hero. Shrugging off the massive disrespect, Tran strolled out to slaughter his prey. The clerk gleefully expected his funeral. But moments later, Tran casually tossed a perfectly pierced demon crow onto the counter, dropping jaws everywhere. The speedrun was legendary. Nobody could believe a rookie wiped out a beast in record-breaking time. Stuttering, they asked if he had backup. A flat yes was his only response before ruthlessly demanding his hard-earned cash. Sweating bullets, a clerk scrambled to fetch the gold coins, nervously advising the terrifying boy to go rest his weary bones. Staff was absolutely paralyzed. The killing strike was a surgical masterpiece, leaving the precious monster materials completely intact. Suddenly, the previously arrogant clerk realized the kid was still ominously standing there. Gulping, he asked what else he needed. Tran casually requested every single high-level bounty available on their shiny notice board. Their minds short-circuited. Who exactly was this absolute monster disguised as a rookie craving non-stop bloody combat? 3 wild days passed, 30 beasts eradicated, and awestruck Lena gladly served the unstoppable hunter their most premium tavern feast. She playfully teased him about his overflowing coin pouch, but our stoic protagonist firmly declared that cheap gold meant absolutely nothing. His true prize, devouring endless, raw, magical energy. Every slaughtered beast permanently leveled up his already ridiculous combat stats. Clenching his glowing fist, he realized his internal power core had wildly multiplied since leaving his cranky master. But grinding weak mobs will not make him a god. He needed the good stuff. Cut to Tran absolutely demolishing his meal. He swears someone stole his food until the staff confirms he inhaled it all alone. Tran shoots the chef a massive thumbs up for the godly grub. The chef grins with burning passion, promising an even more epic feast for next time. Suddenly, a random thug grabs Tran's shoulder. It is Midan's lackey, demanding a shakedown because our boy has been stacking serious coin lately. Tran skips the dialogue and delivers a soul-leaving slap. The entire gang drops their jaws in shock. The thug's buddy swings a clumsy revenge punch. Tran dodges effortlessly and serves up a knuckle sandwich. Thug number 1 charges with a stool. Tran casually blocks it and flicks his forehead, sending him flying. Lena unleashes her terrifying innkeeper wrath, stopping the brawl. Later, Boss Midan knocks on Tran's door looking sweaty. Midan bows at a 90-degree angle, desperately apologizing. He promises those idiots were dealt with and swears absolute peace. Sweating bullets, Midan confesses their party is broke. Seeing Tran roll in cash made his underlings totally green with envy. Barking like a drill sergeant, Midan forces his bruised goons to beg for absolute forgiveness. Tran casually asks if their wallet situation is terrible. Cue the dramatic tears. Midan admits they will be completely homeless in exactly 3 days. Out of nowhere, Tran tosses a fat sack of gold. Midan catches it, his eyes bulging in pure confusion. Tran coolly brushes it off. It is just karma paying him back for actually worrying and wanting to recruit him. Midan blue screens. How did Tran figure that out? But our mysterious main character gives him the silent treatment. The free trial is over though. Tran demands solid intel as payment. Midan beams with joy, promising to spill every juicy secret he possesses. Dawn breaks, and our boy steps out to hunt. This might be his grand finale here. Midan's golden intel completely mapped out his next big destination. It was definitely time to pack up. That clumsy boss actually provided some top-tier game-changing navigation details. Deep down, Midan was a massive softie. Lacking a veteran's dark edge made him surprisingly pure and genuinely kind-hearted. Suddenly, a foul stench hits his nose. Tran activates his gamer sprint, praying to the heavens it is a false alarm. He skids to a halt at the source. The suffocating scent of fresh blood fills the air. The horror escalates. That exact same thug who threw a stool yesterday lies totally mangled and bleeding. Then his blood runs ice cold. Midan's lifeless body is sprawled in the dirt. What kind of nightmare spawned here? Miraculously, one party member spits out some blood. With his final breath, he gasps out the impossible culprit. A rabbit. Tran whips around to meet dead crimson eyes. Without warning, the killer bunny launches forward like a hypersonic missile. A hair's breadth from death, Tran flawlessly dodges. He instantly fires his sling, but the beast effortlessly evades the flying rock. A chill goes down his spine. This mutant furball is an absolute veteran at dodging ranged snipers. The demonic fluffball lunges for the kill again. Not today. Tran pops his invisibility cheat code, totally baffling the creature. He teleports behind it and ruthlessly sinks his blade. But this monster refuses to die quietly. A brutal counterattack blasts Tran completely backwards. Zero cooldown on this boss. The rabbit charges back in, forcing Tran to hit his stealth skill again. Raging out of control, the beast unleashes a massive tantrum, snapping giant trees like toothpicks to crush its prey. Finally, its health bar hits 0. It drops a deafening screech before bleeding out entirely. Looting time, Tran absorbs its core, but his eyes widen. This magic energy signature is completely off the charts. This tiny demon actually packed way more magical juice than that massive leopard from his beginner village. The dying survivor coughs, utterly mind-blown that Tran is a secret wizard. He weakly asks why our hero plays incognito. Dodging the question, Tran gently leans in and asks if there is any family waiting to receive their belongings. The man gives a heartbreaking no. Tran's mind drifts back to yesterday's chatter, where Midan hyped up the Grand City. A legendary hub boasting a colossal library stuffed with rare magic books. But there is a massive catch. That VIP zone is strictly locked to registered wizards, marking their makeshift graves. Tran locks onto his new quest. He whispers a final goodbye to Midan, walking away. Reaching the gates of Orum, Tran's jaw drops. This absolute unit of a metropolis makes his starter town look like a sandbox. Arriving at the massive city gates, he is completely dumbfounded by the absolute ocean of people trying to squeeze their way inside. Tran assumes the guards are doing a hardcore criminal background check. But then again, this place is basically a legendary metropolis. But right before stepping foot inside, a guard violently halts him. The verdict: he is banned from entering because his outfit literally looks like a walking disaster zone. Disgusted guard heavily sighs, demanding he go scrub off that tragic layer of dirt first. After finally clearing the strict customs, Tran makes a beeline for the legendary Grand Library, completely dropping his jaw at its sheer scale. Looking at this towering architectural marvel, he instantly deduces that literal magic was involved in building it. Denied again, the entrance bouncers loudly declare it is a wizard-only zone. Tran casually mentions he is one, but the guards practically pop a blood vessel, calling out his obvious bluff. One cocky guard aggressively reaches out his hand to shove him away. But the exact moment they make physical contact, a horrifying sensation strikes him. Flashback to Quran. Explaining the rules. Wizards automatically scan each other's aura to determine the alpha. Instantly, this poor guard is utterly pulverized by the terrifying, monstrous weight of Tran's hidden magical power. His knees completely buckle as he eats the dirt. His panicked partner starts screaming, wondering what on earth just happened. Sweating bullets, the guy plays it cool. But internally, he is screaming. He instantly realizes this ragged drifter possesses the devastating aura of a high-ranking noble. He scrambles back to his feet, suddenly showing ultimate respect as Kenya, a proud knight of House Voltus. Kenya nervously asks for his noble lineage. Annoyed, Tran simply asks if dropping names is a hard requirement for reading books. Sweating profusely, Kenya clarifies that a premium library pass strictly requires direct approval from the mighty Lord of Voltus himself. Bowing deeply, Kenya immediately contacts the main estate to fetch some high-level backup. Plot twist. What should have been a simple registration magically teleports him straight into the lavish Voltus mansion. Now, a squad of maids is aggressively scrubbing him down inside a luxurious indoor bath. Blushing from the intense awkwardness, he desperately begs for a timeout, asking to just scrub his own back. but the maids instantly burst into tears, crying that they will face severe execution if they neglect an esteemed guest. Defeated by their dramatic waterworks, our hero completely surrenders, telling them to just go crazy. Merging in sparkling designer clothes, his godly makeover leaves the maids absolutely swooning. They drop to their knees begging for pardon, but he flashes a killer smile, brushing off the whole chaotic ordeal. Panicking even harder, the flushed maids fiercely beg him to drop the informal street slang. Tran is just hopelessly lost in this rich people logic. Soon after, he crosses paths with the famously arrogant, fiery-haired young lady Azella. She arrogantly demands his family name. Playing it cool, Tran vaguely claims that his background is a tightly sealed secret. Intrigued by the sudden mystery, a wicked smirk crosses her face. She is already plotting a hilarious way to expose this suspicious drifter. Without warning, she violently erupts with magical energy, daring him to match her sudden flex. Challenge accepted. Azella blazes with a blinding yellow aura, but Tran casually detonates a terrifying ocean blue energy. The gravitational pressure is so absolutely ridiculous that the poor servants literally faceplant into the floor. Impressed by the ultimate flex, Azella praises him and then casually drops a literal marriage proposal. Tran completely short-circuits from the sheer absurdity. Even her loyal butler coughs blood, frantically begging his crazy boss to filter her wild thoughts. Laughing off the heavy silence, Azella waves her hands, desperately claiming it was just top-tier banter, but whispers a cheeky reminder to deeply consider it. Once the chaotic girl finally exits, Tran looks down, realizing his hands are actually visibly trembling. The terrifying truth hits him. That crazy redhead packs enough magical firepower to actually rival his own. Still sweating, he is escorted into the Grand Executive Office, standing face to face with the terrifying head honcho Rug Vultus. Skipping the polite pleasantries, Rug mentions the library request, but he bluntly pops the fantasy bubble, warning that this place does not hide any world-ending or legendary ancient spells. He essentially gives a massive spoiler alert. There are absolutely zero cheat codes here for boosting your precious mana core. Tran shrugs it off, stating he is just here for some light reading, not to conquer the world. Amused by this weird kid, the big boss grants him full premium access anyway. Rug casually mentions that the archives do not hold any dirty family secrets anyway, so he literally has nothing to lose. With the sun already setting, the boss kicks him out until tomorrow. Tran bows deeply, dramatically thanking the old man for not throwing him in a dark dungeon. The next morning, total royal treatment. The once hostile guards practically bow to the floor after verifying his shiny premium pass. Stepping past the grand doors, his brain practically fries. The sheer overwhelming scale of this massive archive is absolutely mind-bending. While he is busy catching flies with his open mouth, Ali pops up like a ninja, cheerfully introducing himself as the Grand Archivist. Crossing his tiny arms, he boldly declares it is time for a mandatory orientation on the strict house rules. Tran is fighting for his life not to burst out laughing. Who put a literal toddler in charge of ancient magical literature? Rule number 1, absolutely no destroying the precious merchandise. Because if a single page tears his wallet is going to suffer a catastrophic dent. Rule 2, 0 takeout allowed. Plus this kid promises to monitor his every single move. Sweating nervously, Tran politely begs the pint-sized stalker to respect his personal bubble so he can read in peace. Spotting the pint-sized librarian, Tran casually asks if the kid actually reads this massive mountain of books. The tiny bookworm puffs his chest, bragging that he can track down absolutely any subject Tran desires. Steamy romance or epic history, the kid offers. But Tran deadpans that he just needs a total crash course on this world's basic common sense. In a flash, the kid lugs over a towering stack of heavy tomes. He admits these dusty relics are centuries old, awkwardly scratching his head since they might be completely useless. Slapping down a fresher stack, the boy guarantees these will work. Tran nods with a grateful smirk. Pure awe strikes him. Flipping open the first page, glorious knowledge washes over Tran like a literal heavenly awakening. Hooked instantly, our main character becomes a total bookworm, eagerly repeating this nerdy daily grind. This relentless studying downloads everything into his brain. Global geography, fantasy races, and even snobby wizard etiquette. He even masters the intricate crafting and processing secrets behind countless magical items. With every absorbed fact, the hazy fog of this unknown fantasy realm bursts into stunningly vivid colors. Several days pass before Lord Rug suddenly summons Tran, casually praising his intense library binges. Rug slyly mentions that treating him like true royalty and granting unrestricted library access was a massive act of goodwill. But nothing is free. The scheming lord demands immediate payment for his supposed kindness. Tran bluntly tells him to just spit it out. Rug reveals a vicious monster is currently ambushing helpless northern travelers. A hunting job, Tran asks. Rug grimly admits 4 elite knights already tried, but vanished without a single trace. Now, he desperately needs a powerful noble's heavy intervention. However, the mighty Vultus family can ironically only spare 2 fighters, Tran doesn't mind playing hero that is basic wizard duty, but his gut loudly screams that this is a setup. Rug whines that this crucial northern trade route has been completely paralyzed for 10 long agonizing days. Tran instantly realizes this disaster started way before he even set foot in town. Library Pass was absolute bait. Soon the hunting party gears up to depart with the arrogant Azella tagging along. Azella loudly groans about her father deploying Tran as her babysitter. Pompous family member Marvin Valtis joins the circus too. Marching into the creepy woods, Marvin boldly questions if Tran harbors romantic feelings for Azella. Tran drops a brutally fast rejection, making Marvin sigh with dramatic, exaggerated relief. Suddenly, a shattered carriage blocks their path, the horrific masterpiece of their elusive target. Clueless guards scatter to inspect the debris, but Tran's sharp senses instantly decode the bloody crime scene. He casually declares their enemy is a monkey-type beast, leaving a baffled Azella, demanding to know his logic. Pointing to a distant, bizarre handprint, Tran deduces the ape ambushed the helpless travelers before retreating into the shadows. He confidently states they can flush out the beast by simply riding its lingering tracks. Azella scoffs, admitting neither she nor Marvin possesses tracking magic. Tran just smirks, volunteering to activate his own ocular skills. Shock rocks Azella as Tran's legendary bloodline awakens. He casually snatches a torn rag, locking onto the beast's residual signature. Tracking the sinister mana flow, his finger darts forward, charting their deadly path into the dense wilderness. Moments later, they hit a total dead end at a quietly babbling forest stream. Tran notes the creature scrubbed its scent away in the water. Azella's jaw drops. How could a brainless beast execute tactical evasion? Shrugging off their panic, Tran dryly suggests the dirty ape maybe just wanted a quick, refreshing bath. Suddenly, a putrid stench violently floods Tran's nose. He roars a desperate warning. The ambush is coming from behind. A nightmarish ape explodes from the shadows. Worse yet, the ugly brute starts launching heavy, skull-crushing boulders like artillery shells. The supersonic rocks rip through the night formation, but Tran effortlessly dances past the lethal projectiles. But turning around, he watches in utter disbelief as Azella and Marvin cowardly use their own guards as meat shields. Disgust washes over him. His mother was absolutely right about these trashy nobles. As the beast pivots to flee, a shrieking Azella commands the surviving knights to pursue. The ape almost vanishes, but suddenly, a blindingly fast rock shrieks past Azella's ear like a sniper bullet. It threads the needle past the guards, violently piercing the monster's hide and slamming it straight down. Jaws hit the floor as Azella and Marvin turn back only to witness Tran casually lowering a toy slingshot. With the beast neutralized, Azella unleashes absolute hellfire, nuking the beast with such ridiculous firepower she practically causes global warming. Meanwhile, Tran nods in quiet awe, finally witnessing the infamous Vultus family bloodline, a clan of absolute pyromaniacs. After turning the monster into extra crispy bacon, Azella shamelessly admits that the flying boulder actually terrified her. While those two casually banter like old pals, the battered knights groan in absolute agony. Azella savagely tells them to stop crying, even the poor guy missing an arm. Ultimately, our trio performs emergency first aid. Watching the chaos, Tran simply counts his blessings that nobody actually died. Despite the nasty ambush, he silently judges that they absolutely could have avoided taking such heavy damage. He realizes these two overpowered nobles basically used the hilariously weaker knights as their own personal meat shields. Catching Tran's disgusted side-eye, Marvin asks what is wrong, but our main character just brushes it off entirely. Azella casually invites Tran to feast on the monster's leftover energy. Nodding, the trio circles the scorched beast. Thanks to his reading habits, Tran knows that sharing a mana core does not actually dilute the power boost. In no time flat, the two nobles hit their mana capacity and tap out completely exhausted. Shockingly, Tran is still chugging down magical energy, like a literal bottomless pit. Azella finally grasps why her father endorsed him. His sheer mana tank and magical mastery rival her own, the wildest part. This supposedly average noble boy has not even hit his teenage growth spurt yet. Back at the Grand Fortress, Marvin claps Tran on the back, declaring him the absolute hero of their hunt. Naturally, our deadpan hero plays it totally cool, claiming it was nothing special. Internally, he beats himself up for missing the ambush and letting that overgrown ape score a cheap first hit. Plus, who could have guessed that a random forest beast possessed such high-tier tracking skills? The nobles blink in total confusion. Sighing, Tran drops some basic lore physical traits dictate a monster's awakened powers. He points out the massive hands and bulging eyes on that monkey, features that definitely scream unnatural mutation. Those freaky traits meant it evolved a devastating sniper throw ability, plus crazy vision to spot them through dense woods. Marvin's mind is absolutely blown by this walking encyclopedia of hardcore monster trivia. Tran casually credits a library bestiary. Marvin gasps, totally disgusted that anyone would voluntarily visit that boring nerd cave. Blushing slightly, Azella confesses she sneaked in there once as a kid just to peek around, but the giant walls of agonizingly complex text made her rage quit before finishing a single chapter, Smirking, Tran roasts them, suggesting they ask the librarian for some heavily illustrated picture books next time. Azella tilts her head. Wait, what librarian? Cut to the library, where a wildly enthusiastic figure cheerfully greets our hero. Staring blankly at this eccentric weirdo, Tran immediately regrets his life choices. He looks absolutely nothing like a scholar. When Tran sharply demands how he knows his name, the dramatic librarian gasps in fake shock. Busted, the entity smirks. He peeked at Tran's magical entry pass, boasting that his all-seeing eyes monitor every single corner. Unfazed by the weird flex, Tran flatly asks what to call him. The entity shrugs, claiming he lacks a true title. Rolling his eyes, Tran lazily slaps him with the nickname Librarian. Naturally, the librarian ruins the mood by blurting out highly inappropriate adult-rated humor. Ignoring the cringe, Tran interrogates if he is an ancient empire relic. The being laughs he was never human anyway. He proudly reveals he is the library's living spirit. Furthermore, his current sassy appearance perfectly matches Tran's deepest subconscious desires. Tran instantly fires back viciously, denying that this degenerate form matches his personal tastes. But the smug spirit refuses to back down, teasingly insisting he is the ultimate reflection of Tran's hidden heart. To test this nonsense, Tran jabs a finger forward. Sure enough, his hand phases straight through the spectral troll. The ghost whines about his lack of a physical body. If he had fists, he would absolutely pummel every student who ever stole a book. Tran deduces, this ghost has been lonely forever. The librarian smirks, claiming nobody else possessed the legendary qualifications to perceive him. His original master programmed a rigid system rule: only those possessing an incredibly rare tier of power can unlock his visibility, meaning our overpowered hero is the absolute only person capable of seeing this nuisance. Narrowing his eyes, Tran demands an actual explanation. The spirit winks, dropping a massive lore bomb, the ancient bloodline. Desperate for answers, Tran demands the hidden truth. But the ultimate troll librarian just laughs sarcastically, telling him to go ask his mommy. Backed into a corner, Tran confesses he is an orphan. The ghostly librarian eagerly offers to investigate his mysterious origins, but there is a catch. He needs permission to inspect his body. Sweating bullets, Tran reluctantly agrees to the magical scan. The ghost phases his hand right into Tran's chest. He quickly confirms what Tran suspected. The hunter and pursuer bloodlines of the legendary House Zahar flow through him, but then a shocking revelation drops. There is a third mysterious mixed bloodline hidden within. Tran is basically a walking genetic jackpot. When asked about this third bloodline, the librarian shrugs, admitting it is completely sealed away. Surprisingly enough, a dormant bloodline is actually pretty common among mixed blood awakeners. Ghost reassures him that this hidden power will naturally break its seal as he levels up. The puzzle pieces finally click. His mother was far too brilliant to be a commoner. She was definitely a fallen noble in hiding, and bows to thank the scholar. But the eccentric ghost shoots back with a sly grin, suggesting he stay another month if he is truly thankful. From then on, Tran grinds through the massive library with the clingy ghost constantly hovering nearby. Whenever Tran stumbles on complex magic theory, the ghostly tutor instantly breaks it down into simple lessons. This spirit is a walking cheat code, casually dropping ancient knowledge that has been lost for millennia. The ghost even starts lecturing on the fundamental laws of nature, completely shattering Tran's medieval worldview. He learns the mind-bending truth about microorganisms. Diseases and biological decay are just tiny germs feasting away. He quickly masters modern scientific principles, from light refraction and friction-generated heat to the precise biological mechanics behind how injuries actually heal. Putting theory into practice, Tran successfully conducts a decay experiment. His jaw practically drops when it works flawlessly. Armed with this forbidden scientific knowledge, his overall wizardry skills skyrocket to a whole new level. Tran realizes a dark truth. The elite noble houses are intentionally hoarding this knowledge to completely suppress any rival wizards. The ghostly scholar sighs in realization. No wonder humanity's magical advancement keeps steadily degrading over the centuries. In a flash, an entire month completely evaporates. Tran finally announces his departure. The ghost is utterly shocked, but Tran explains that Rug is already aggressively hinting for him to leave. Utterly devastated, the dramatic ghost lunges forward, crying and begging Tran to take him along on the journey. But hilariously, he completely phases right through Tran's solid body. Tran asks if the ghost can leave the library. The answer is no. The spirit promises eternal pampering if he stays, but Tran firmly declines. Heading for the exit, Tran promises to drop by occasionally. After all, there are still massive mountains of unread books left. Without looking back, Tran packs up his gear and finally steps out of the ancient city. Using a rare map swiped from the archives, he learns House Zahar's base. The Enril Desert lies far to the east. His next destination is locked in. It is time to infiltrate Zahar and unearth clues about his hidden parents. There is no need to rush cold trails, so Tran peacefully camps in the woods. Along his journey, he casually slaughters any foolish monsters crossing his path. The next day, he spots a bizarre scene. A fiercely loyal horse is defending its unconscious master from two dark elves. The evil assassins are absolutely fuming. They are actually losing ground to a freaking farm animal. Humiliated, the elves activate their dark necromancy, reviving dead monster corpses nearby. Tran stays perfectly hidden, watching the sinister magic unfold. Tran debates whether to intervene. For all he knows, that unconscious guy might actually be the real villain here. But then the sick elves casually snack on dead human corpses while brainstorming how to bypass the stubborn horse. Seeing these cannibal freaks instantly triggers Tran's absolute disgust. Without hesitation, he activates his absolute stealth mode. Blending perfectly into the shadows, he chucks a high-velocity stone, clean sweeping one elf's head right off his shoulders. The surviving elf absolutely loses his mind as his buddy drops headless to the dirt. Panicking, the necromancer rallies his undead beasts. Tran fires another lethal shot, but a massive undead bull blocks it with its rock-hard skull. Enraged, the zombie bull charges toward Tran's blind spot, effortlessly bulldozing massive trees out of its way. But hitting empty air, the beast misses. Sweating with fear, the elf uses a tracking monster to sniff out the invisible assassin's coordinates. Tran's cover is totally blown. Forced out of stealth, the necromancer instantly commands the feral horde to rip him apart. Reacting fast, Tran summons blazing fire, instantly turning one monstrous undead into mere ashes. But before he can even readjust, the hellish bull dive bombs him. Tran barely dodges death by a razor-thin margin. Cold sweat drips down Tran's face. These undead are insanely fast. He silently praises the heavens he already eliminated one spellcaster. Suddenly, chomp. A hidden monster viciously sinks its cursed fangs right into his back. The beast literally chomps down on his heel. While Tran wildly flails, a massive bull totally yeets him into a tree. He slams against the bark so hard, screaming like he just stepped on a cursed Lego. Coughing up blood, our hero tragically drops to his knees. Meanwhile, the super edgy elf monologues about delivering a slow, hilariously agonizing death. Bam! Out of nowhere, the horse hilariously drop-kicks the smug elf right in the face. The pathetic elf cries for mommy, prompting his goons to violently jump the poor horse. Ignoring our main character, classic rookie mistake, Tran seizes the moment, unleashing a ridiculously overpowered strike that cleanly rips the elf's head right off. Boss defeated, the minions vanish. Tran completely collapses, his stamina tank entirely empty. The absolute Chad of a horse trots over, and our exhausted hero gratefully thanks his unlikely savior. Fast forward to midnight. The horse's actual master jolts awake, violently flinching at the random creepy dude staring him down. Tran just awkwardly waves hello, prompting the panic guy to frantically scream for his identity. Tran explains he simply crashed the dark elf party to save him. The noble steed nudges its owner, who emotionally pets her, revealing the absolute legend is named Tilly. Tran totally hypes up the beast, praising Tilly as a top-tier companion who violently understands the ultimate assignment of protecting her master. The guy cries tears of gratitude, dramatically introducing himself as Aes from the prestigious Houseburg. Dropping his own name, Tran casually asks why on earth Aes picked a deadly fight with a literal squad of edgy dark elves. Aes whines that he was just enjoying a peaceful holy road trip with his crew when those toxic elves mercilessly jumped him. He complains about hearing rumors regarding savage demi-humans, but experiencing this insane level of unhinged violence was a massive reality check. Aes literally bursts into comical tears, quickly apologizing for suddenly turning into an emotional wreck. Sniffling, he confesses he lost his extremely precious crew. Tran assumes it was family, but Aes clarifies it was his incredibly loyal knights and trusted servants on this doomed trip. Those guys practically spoon-fed him since childhood, making them his true found family in this crazy messed up world. Judging his vibe, Tran officially decides Aes passes the vibe check. He casually mentions slaughtering 2 elves, asking exactly how many were in that annoying raid party. Aes drops the absolute bombshell that Tran literally wiped out the entire squad, not trusting his protagonist. Tran wildly spams his radar skill, furiously scanning the perimeter to ensure 0 stealthy assassins are still lurking in the bushes. Aes nervously asks if our hero has some epic quest pending. Surprisingly, Tran casually admits he is basically dragging himself through his very own exhausting pilgrimage, mind blown by his insane power scaling. Aes totally fanboys, assuming Tran is secretly the hidden heir of some insanely overpowered legendary noble family. Why play solo? Tran awkwardly scratches his head, dodging the crazy backstory by humbly claiming his stats are actually complete garbage. He admits he merely exploited a cheesy stealth attack on one elf, while totally getting carried by Tilly, the battle horse, to finish the other. Suddenly, both dudes dramatically flare their auras in a classic, totally unnecessary flex-off. After powering down, Tran is absolutely shook. Aes' magical core is carrying a ridiculously massive mana tank. Honestly, if Tran had not completely vampired those dark elves for their tasty experience points, this random rich kid would actually outscale his mana pool. Meanwhile, Aes remains completely convinced Tran possesses some totally broken main character, noble bloodline. Thus, detecting his insane untapped potential, Aiz is super confused why this absolute unit is aggressively solo leveling in the middle of nowhere. Seeing Tran wander like a lost puppy, Aiz pitches a brilliant idea. He formally invites the solo player back to the luxurious Hausberg. He promises a mega reward for the VIP escort mission back home. Curious about the loot, Tran straight up asks what kind of legendary drop to expect. Time for the epic lore drop. Aiz proudly brags his clan are elite enchanters, direct vassals to the ridiculously rich Arabian house ruling the frozen north. For countless generations, his prestigious bloodline has exclusively cranked out insanely overpowered magical artifacts. To settle his epic life debt, he promises to forge Tran, the absolute craziest god-tier magical item ever.